Have you ever felt like the weather is just acting super weird? One day it's one thing, the next it's something totally different. Well, it's kind of like there's a huge secret story being told all across the world. And guess what? Today, we're going to be the detectives who crack the case. Okay, get this. What if I told you that a lot of that wacky weather, like scary forest fires in one place and massive floods in another, could all be connected to just one thing? A giant wobble in the biggest ocean on Earth. I know, it sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, right? Well, it's real, so let's investigate. All right, every good detective story starts with clues, and our clues are popping up all over the planet, disguised as weather. So let's grab our magnifying glasses and start looking at the evidence. Now here's where it gets really strange. The clues don't seem to make any sense together. In some places, like Australia and Indonesia, it suddenly just stops raining. This can lead to really bad droughts and a higher chance of big wildfires. But at the exact same time, on the other side of the world, deserts in South America are getting hit with these massive out-of-nowhere floods. How can the world be both flooding and on fire at the same time? It's a real head-scratcher. Okay, we've examined the clues, and it's time to name our number one suspect. The phenomenon behind all this global weather chaos has a name you might have heard before. Dun dun dun! It's called El Niño. So what in the world is El Niño? Is it a person, a storm, a space alien? Nope. It's a totally natural climate pattern, and it all boils down to this one simple thing. A huge patch of water in the middle of the Pacific Ocean gets way warmer than it's supposed to be. That's it. Just some warm water. It might not sound like a big deal, but trust me, that little bit of extra warmth is powerful enough to mess with weather all over the planet. And you want to hear a fun fact about the name? It's actually pretty cool. Hundreds of years ago, fishermen off the coast of Peru noticed that these strange warm waters often appeared right around Christmas time. So they called it El Niño, which is Spanish for the little boy, as a little nod to the holiday. But still, how does a patch of warm water in one ocean cause all that trouble? How does it cause droughts in Asia and floods in the Americas? Well, I want you to imagine the entire Pacific Ocean is like a gigantic seesaw, or maybe a huge bathtub. El Niño is basically the thing that makes all the water slosh from one side to the other. Okay, check this out. Normally, there are these really strong winds called trade winds that are always blowing across the Pacific, from the Americas towards Asia. They're like a giant fan, and they push all the warm water on the ocean's surface over to the western side, piling it up near Australia. But during an El Niño, those winds, well, they get lazy, they weaken. And when that giant fan slows down, that huge pile of warm water is free to slosh all the way back across the ocean, heading right for North and South America. And that's where the trouble begins. And get this, El Niño doesn't work alone. It's part of a team. Its opposite is called La Niña, which you can think of as the cool phase of the seesaw. During La Niña, those trade winds get super duper strong, pushing even more warm water to the west. This lets lots of cool water from the deep ocean rise up in the east. Together, El Niño and La Niña make up a cycle that scientists call ENSO, and it flips back and forth every few years. Now that we know how our suspect operates, let's go on a world tour to see exactly what it does. It's time to follow El Niño's trail of chaos around the globe. First stop, the Americas. That huge puddle of warm water that sloshed over acts like a giant heater. It warms up the air, and that changes the path of the winds way up high in the atmosphere. This shift brings a lot more rain and floods to places like California and the southern U.S. But at the same time, the northern U.S. and Canada can get a really warm, dry winter. And here's the weirdest part. El Niño can actually make hurricanes weaker in the Atlantic Ocean, but it can supercharge them in the Pacific. Totally wild. Okay, let's zip across the ocean to Asia and Australia. Since all that warm water sloshed away, this side of the Pacific gets cooler and a lot drier. This can mean serious droughts for Australia and Indonesia and a much higher risk of big bushfires. But maybe the biggest bummer is what happens under the water. That extra heat is devastating for coral reefs, causing something called coral bleaching. That's when the corals get so stressed they turn completely white and can die. So just when you think you've got this whole thing figured out, there's a twist. Sometimes El Niño doesn't just show up. It shows up with a cape. We're talking about a super El Niño, and that's when things get really, really extreme. So what's the difference between a regular El Niño and a super one? It all comes down to this one number.
When the water temperature in that special part of the Pacific hits 2 degrees Celsius, or even more, above its normal temperature, bam, you are officially in super El Nino territory. And that means all the effects we just talked about, the floods, the droughts, the storms, get cranked up to the max. These super events are pretty rare, but when they hit, they make history. There was a massive one in the early 80s that really took scientists by surprise. Then, the one in 1997 and 98 caused unbelievable damage and led to a terrible coral bleaching event. And the most recent one, in 2015-16, was just as powerful, reminding everyone just how disruptive these super events can be.
So we've identified our culprit. We've seen the damage it can cause. So is the case closed? Not even close. Because the best part of solving a mystery is figuring out what to do next. And this is where the real-life climate detectives, our amazing scientists, really get to work. And this isn't a new case, Scientists have been on it for decades. Look at this. Way back in 1997, after a huge El Nino, a United Nations group was already saying, hey, everyone, we need to monitor the weather all the time so we can spot these things early. And today, we have satellites, special buoys in the ocean, and supercomputers all working to give us a heads up. Knowing that an El Nino is coming is our superpower because it means we can get ready. So what can we all do? Well, first, we can stay informed by listening to the forecasts. Second, we can help our communities prepare, whether that's saving water for a drought or getting ready for floods. And third, the really big one, we have to protect our whole planet. By working to reduce global warming, we might be able to make these natural cycles a little less extreme in the future. And that leaves us with one last giant question. We know El Nino is a natural thing. It's been part of our planet's rhythm for thousands of years. But as our whole world gets warmer, are we accidentally giving this climate culprit extra power? Are we turning a natural wobble into something even more dangerous? That's the next great weather mystery that today's climate detectives are working hard to solve right now.